Hello everyone. So sorry for the delay. We were just waiting for people to join the Hangout before we start. But since no one has joined, we'll
Yeah, I
start.
think it's a bit
Yeah.
strange. We have quite a few questions, but nobody has joined yet. I hope people are able to join. I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we can start
Yeah.
answering questions that are in the Q&A.
If there are any issues joining, just like post in the chat. Okay. So apparently there's a 403 error that's coming up. Ramesh, can you try it again? Hey all, again, sorry for the delay. It looks like the Hangout link is working. So just in case you can't join, I mean, like we can see that like people are actually watching this. So I mean, sorry about issues, but like
Yeah, and the link is posted.
Yeah, I
right,
posted
to
both the
join,
links on the event page. So okay, and then we'll just start with the top-rated questions. Unless someone joins and has some live questions, we'll just go through the questions that are already asked. If you have any follow-up questions, just please keep adding to the Q&A sheet. All right. First question is by Anish Tiwari. Google says that we need many backlinks to improve rankings, but at the same time puts a barrier on link building. How can we do it, or is there any other way you want to suggest? So yes, we put emphasis on good backlinks, but that's the thing. So natural backlinks where people are recommending your content is sort of a good signal that Google lets Google know that your site is has content regarding that's relevant to that particular anchor text on that link. But if you're like actively trying to manufacture links, that sort of it basically means you're trying to manipulate your ranking position in Google search results. So it's obviously not something that we'll encourage. So I just suggest just keep building good content and then engage in social media. Just share your content and like if possible, maybe even go through give some ad campaigns so that more people see your content, and that way if it goes viral, you can not even viral. That way, if people like think that's useful, they'll just link to it automatically.
Yeah, I think it is important to understand what the main function of the links is. And as Ashish rightly mentioned, if you're trying to build artificial links, then of course that's not a good signal for Google, to recognize your pages as authoritative. So I think if links are built naturally by themselves because of your content and your presence and the value that users are finding in, then probably those links can be valued.
We have a question from Neeraj.
Okay, so recently I have seen that in Page speed insights, there is an option to download optimized images, JavaScript and CSS resources, implementation of these enough to optimize speed of a website. Okay, implementation of these okay. Do to replace these resources, person should know good coding. Okay. The question appears a little bit broken, but I think
yeah, he's basically asking if I optimize my images and resources, is just that enough to optimize speed of my website?
Yeah. So basically, the things that you see, like JavaScript, CSS, and your images, suggestions for these in the page speed insight tool. If you just fix those issues, are you in a good position, right? In terms of basically speed of your web pages, that is what the question is, and I think yes. And actually, we have seen that like major problem for websites to be slow, especially on mobile devices, is not optimizing your images for mobile devices. So what we have seen is like a lot of websites, they still serve the same high resolution heavy images that are supposed to be served to the desktop users. They serve the same thing to the mobile users as well, and this happens in a majority of cases. So this is one of the major problems in making websites slower on mobile devices. So that is a major chunk of that. And then of course there are a lot of things that you can fix. And yes, if you're using page speed insight tools and follow those guidelines there and suggestions, whatever we're suggesting there, as you should be in a very good position.
So Boni asks, I've implemented site links, search schema, and social media profile schema on my website, but still it's not visible in Google. Is it because our website is linked to Google Plus local page? So first things first, I mean, we obviously try to add knowledge panels and site links for as many sites as possible, but it's not a guarantee that we'll always show site links just because you've implemented it correctly, and just because you added social profiles, it doesn't mean like we'll show your Google Plus local page and knowledge graph and the social media profiles below. I mean, of course, it's natural to expect Google to show as long as you've not you met all the requirements. There's no reason for Google not to show, but like it's still an ongoing thing, and we're trying to improve it. And in some cases, it's just that like we're just not showing it at the moment. In the future, it could be your site will be shown could be shown in the knowledge graph panel. But yeah, so the thing is like just make sure everything is right on your side, and it could show up in the future.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I'm not 100% sure on knowledge graph assets. Sorry.
I think there is another similar question, the answer to which would be again the same as Ashish mentioned. Again, the question is sometimes social schema of certain site doesn't show up in knowledge graph in spite of adding schema markup for a site. What should we do in that case? Again, as Ashish mentioned, it is not a guarantee that it will show up, but I think if you have a good website and you have implemented this schema correctly, and it may show up one day for some queries whenever Google thinks it's appropriate to show that schema in the search results for your site, your pages.
Vishal asks, why would your business website rank very badly for one keyword? You can rank well for other terms and not rank for one main keyword, and you can't figure out why. Honestly, this is very subjective because it like every query has. I mean, your website. It depends, right? So if you're a shoe website selling shoes, you could rank well for certain pages because people like say certain shoes on your website. But for certain other shoes, maybe I don't know. You're like people are not linking to that, or it's not very popular. You could just it's very subjective, and unless we actually look at those pages and see why it's ranking and why it's not ranking, we can't answer that. For these questions, I'd rather suggest you post it in our webmaster forum. You have anything to add?
No, I think, yeah, what Ashish has mentioned is true. It is very subjective. And, there is no guarantee that your website may rank for all the keywords that you're trying to rank it for. And there may be tons of reasons why this may be happening. It could be your content, it could be your website, or it could be the competition that is there for that particular keyword in that niche. Probably other websites have better content, or it is more relevant to users' query. So tons of things. And as Ashish mentioned, it is like there is no one answer to that, right? And if you want something to be debugged, if you think there could be some problem from your website, if you're not crawling some important pages from your website and things like that, then probably post this question in the help our Webmaster forum so that somebody can actually take a look and debug things for you.
Shankar asks, recently we observed huge inflow of bot visits in analytics, and all these visits were coming from Internet Explorer. How can I filter out such visits without using multiple IP domain filters? So honestly, this is a Webmaster Central hangout, and we'll try and, because we have limited time, we'll try and answer only search-related questions. I see a couple of news-related questions also. Sorry, we'll not be taking those because we have limited time, and try and take only search-related.
Yeah, I think if you have anything non-search related, like analytics, news, anything, we do have support forums for those products as well. Feel free to post there.
Right. Neeraj asks, is it possible to get site links in search results for a website, or does it totally depend on search engines? So as long as you've structured your if your site URL structure is clean, and it follows it's easy for our crawlers to crawl, and if there's enough reasons for Google to believe that, say when people are searching for your website, uh, if there's enough reason for Google to believe that it's useful for users to also give an about us page, a contact us page, and other popular pages on your website, we generally serve the site link pages. So it's an algorithmic decision. So there's no there are no specific rules or things that you can do to get site links online. So it's just make sure your URL structure is clean, and the navigation structure makes sense. Apart from that, it totally depends upon it's Google's call. Ramesh has a question on faulty redirects. Google recommends directing desktop users to equivalent mobile pages, but why is there no guide on mobile pages to desktop pages? We are redirecting users who click on desktop view from mobile page to equivalent desktop page.
I think redirects basically, I think the question is if a person is supposed to redirect desktop page to a mobile page when it is being accessed from a mobile device, why there is no guidance on a mobile page to be redirected to desktop page? I think that's a good practice, and if you're doing a desktop view link on your mobile website, I think that's a good practice and you should do that. And I think we haven't put explicitly a statement about this, maybe on our.
I think it's just because we generally notice
Absolutely.
that a desktop is your main website, and say you have 10 pages on the desktop website, and it's just that desktop is your main website, and we've seen in the past many errors where people don't redirect properly to their mobile versions. So yeah, which is why we decided to show those faulty redirects in Webmaster Tools. And of course, if you have faulty redirects, you also have a ranking issue. We'll obviously, if there is a penalty for that. But the opposite is it's not as, we don't see it as regularly, which is why, obviously you have to redirect it to the correct version. It's just that we are not specifically mentioning that in our documentation. Nilesh asks, if I switch my site from HTTP to HTTPS, do I get ranking benefits, and I need to create new sitemaps and inform to Google? So yeah, I mean, ranking benefits, it's good to have, like, yeah, if you don't have HTTPS, there is a small negative ranking, but there are obviously many positives to having HTTPS, which is why we made it a ranking factor.
Yeah, I think it's a very minor factor to have. I mean, between HTTP and HTTPS, it's not a major factor. So, for example, if there are two competing pages, they stand good on everything else except HTTP and HTTPS, both on the same subject, then probably we may prefer to show the HTTPS version because we know that is a secure page for our users. So of course, we would prefer in that situation an HTTPS page to an HTTP page. But otherwise, it's just a minor signal. It is, as Ashish mentioned, it is good to have. If you can, you should definitely go for an HTTPS version of your website.
Amit asks, is there a duplicate content penalty from Google? A client having many sites all focused on the same niche is having duplicate content and site lost organic rankings. Is this a penalty or something else we need to look out from our end? So with regards to duplicate content, it's just that when we see 4 or 5 pages having the same content, we'd obviously prefer to serve only one page. And if all of those pages are from the same website, then if the webmaster specifies that there's a certain canonical page, we'll try and show that. Sorry. If he doesn't specify a canonical, we'll generally try and pick one page which we think is the canonical version of those 5 pages. Of course, this applies to different websites also. Even if the different websites are from different webmasters, if we see the same content from like 5 different on 5 different pages, we will naturally try and serve only one page, and like those other 4 pages will be marked as duplicates of this page that's being served. So
yeah, as far as your comment about penalty, so basically, if you have any manual action on your website being taken, that will show up in your Webmaster Tools. So unless you're seeing a manual action in your Webmaster Tools, you don't have a manual action on your website. If you see, then you do have a manual action.
Yeah, and if it's not a manual action, it's basically what I said. We'll try and pick one canonical from a set of pages that are like having duplicate content. So Neeraj asks, I spotted a bold and red slow label in Android search incognito mode.
My articles have been published on various blogs and forums about this.
We are not aware of this.
Yeah, I spotted a bold and red slow label. So
is this occurring on your website or something? I mean, or generally with search in an Android phone?
Yeah, I think since Neeraj is not here, probably we can get an immediate answer from him.
So
I think we need some clarity on this question.
Please follow up on this question. Just answer if it's on your website, or is it something with regards to the phone, like the Android or the browser? Gary announced that at SMX West, Google's IX recommendations will go away. Can you explain more about that? Yeah, so it's basically what Gary said. The rendering, yesterday, if you've seen our Webmaster Central blog, we've announced a new fetch and rendering tool in as part of the Fetches Google feature in Webmaster Tools. So now you can actually see we can actually render your pages in full. So we just there's no point in having crawling recommendations for IX anymore. So we're pretty confident about rendering those pages without getting snapshots of alternate snapshots. I think we answered this question already. So social
this is about a site link search box again.
Okay, Nilesh asks if my site is new, responsive. Okay, so this question is basically if my site is perfect, will it rank in first page? Uh, could be, couldn't be. So I mean, there's it. Obviously, we prefer your site to be like perfect, user friendly, have good content and everything. But again, there could be many other sites also having the same, maintaining proper standards and having good content. So it depends upon like what the user is looking for and how relevant we think a page is to show up in the first position. So obviously, it depends upon the user query. There are a lot of other factors too. But yeah, if you, I mean, it's always, if you have all these, then you're in a good standing to rank well. Chami asks, major publishers use footer links pointing to the network sites. Is it good or bad to use reciprocal link between their brands? How Google treats that? So you can answer that. I mean, it's linking between networks. If there are if all of those sites are from the same network, it sort of makes sense to let it's user friendly for because the user can understand that these are all sites. All these sites are part of the same network, and it's sort of a navigational feature too. They can easily go to other sites in the similar network. So it is user friendly and it doesn't come off as link manipulation. So just look at like if you're putting links there for so that it's easier for your users to navigate and it's easier for your users to understand that these are all sites that are part of your network, or if you're putting the links there just to manipulate search engine rankings and simply build reciprocal links and all that. So just look at it in that
Yeah, I think it is important to have focus on your users again. So if you think these links are going to add value to people who are visiting those pages, then there's no problem with it. But if you think if you're better off not putting those links there, then that is also an acceptable practice. Yeah, unless you're doing something very weird, something very strange, or you're having like, say, for example, 100, 200 links at the bottom of your pages, that may seem a little fishy. But otherwise, linking to your sites is not a problem.
Yeah, and of course, if you do linking between your networks, you think it's good for your users, but if you see some sort of manual action, you can always file for a reconsideration request and tell Google that like, hey, these are actually links between our networks, and this is not like manipulation. So there's a question from Ernest. Where do I find the website translator widget? Again, this is not a search question, but you can find this in translate.google.com/website management, I think. Yeah. So Ramesh asks, is it okay with Google if we don't put the following annotation on HTML media, only screen max width 640 pixels, and this to be used in link rel alternate m.example.com. So both of those are different annotations. The first one is a CSS signal, CSS media query. Just it's used in responsive web design. And second one is if you have a completely different mobile website and you're sort of telling Google that hey, the alternate version or the mobile version of this desktop page is at this location. So these are different annotations, and use it based on what kind of website you have. So if you have responsive web design, you use the media query. If you have a different mobile web page, you point Google to the alternate version using the link rel alternate. Okay, Ramesh again asks, what Google recommends on pagination of mobile websites. Should we allow pagination, or should we show content to users via infinite scrolling? It's up to you, like whichever you think is useful for users. If you think like it's better to have it in multiple pages, it's easier for them to navigate that way, you can always do that. Just make sure you use the correct rel prev and rel next tags when implementing pagination, so that Google understands that all of this is part of one article.
Yeah, and when you're using infinite scrolling, probably you should also make sure that all that content is actually crawlable and accessible by Googlebot.
Krinal Mehta asks, rich snippets testing tool shows the event schema is properly implemented, but I don't see it in SERPs. Is there a checklist to follow for a search query for similar websites? We are seeing events. So yeah, again, it's sort of similar to the site links thing where if you can implement rich snippets perfectly, but it's at the end of the day, it's still Google's call. But you can make sure you're not missing out on you're not making any mistakes with regards to our technical guidelines or our quality guidelines. So technical guidelines, like you said, if it shows properly in the testing tool, it's generally fine. With regards to quality guidelines, there could be cases where we don't show your rich snippets if we think the page quality is low or if it violates any of our quality guidelines. You can find all of this information in our help center. So like, just type rich snippets are not appearing in search results and you see an article. So for example, for events, there are these usage guidelines where say if the title is not properly implemented, then we may not show it. So instead of saying say football, I mean like so ABC football tournament, if you say ABC football tournament hyphen sale on tickets, so the second one is a promotional title and that is against the guidelines. So obviously I'm not saying that you did this, but just check that so that you didn't violate any of our quality guidelines or our usage guidelines. Okay. Next question is by Ramesh. For dynamic sites, how do we vary HTTP header for user agent? We are using Akamai, and I was reading that it's really hard to get this done.
Yeah, so I think there are some content delivery networks that may not cache your pages if you have a HTTP vary header because of many reasons, probably valid reasons for them. But I think in the end, Google definitely recommends when you have a dynamic page, we would definitely recommend you to have a HTTP vary header because that is how we determine if the same URL is serving different content on different devices or not. So that is the way we use to detect dynamic serving pages, and it is important. So, but I think when it comes to content delivery network, of course, some of these content delivery networks like Akamai may not cache your pages. At the end, I think from a personal perspective, I think the use of HTTP, vary header, the advantages of using it outweighs the disadvantages it has, right? There are some one-off individual services like this who may not cache, but however, you have your ISPs and several other
CDNs.
yes, absolutely. Several other steps in between the network that may actually where your pages may be cached, and these services can do smart things if you have the right. So I think it is definitely useful to solve that, and especially when it comes to Google, we definitely recommend that.
So Ramesh again asks, we don't have mobile XML sitemaps for mobile sites. Is it mandatory? If yes, should we create mobile XML separately, or should include it in the desktop XML? First things first, sitemaps are not mandatory. So sitemaps, again, they're just a way for you to let Google know that all these URLs exist, and it's just in a way it's easier for Google to simply like go through pick up URLs from your sitemap and crawl and maybe index them. But if you and then if it comes to the case of implementing, again, it's while it's good to have a separate mobile sitemaps because it's easier for you to manage. There's no hard and fast rule that you have to include your mobile URLs in a separate sitemap. If you're submitting it to Webmaster Tools, as long as both your mobile website and your desktop website are verified with Webmaster Tools, you can have all of them in the same sitemap. Hope that answered your question. Okay, we got a follow-up from Neeraj on the question around the slow thing. So I searched Neeraj Kumar and 3 results of YouTube scholars in Twitter and found slow written before those URLs and taking screenshots and shared on a Google community. And then started. Okay, again, I'm not sure if this is a search question, so I'm honestly.
Yeah, I think if you have already posted in the community, we'll definitely go back and take a look.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, Avinash has a question. Why non-Indian websites showing Serpent on Google.in rank well? Okay, again, Google.co.in, it's just like Google's local, I mean, Indian TLD, and it's we try to serve results as relevant as possible. So it doesn't matter if there are websites from different locations. If it has relevant content, then we'll definitely try and put that above say local results. Of course, like if someone's targeting their content to Indian audience and we think that's more relevant, we'll obviously show that. But again, relevancy is the main factor here. So if there is content that's more relevant and like from a different location, the website is from a different location, we'll probably show that. And like in your question, like you're searching for dining chairs. Of course, if it's just a simple dining chairs question query, then like we don't know if you're looking for dining chairs to buy close by or like just dining chairs in general. So right, if you're simply searching for dining chairs, there are cases where people would want to like look at different dining chairs, and maybe there's some high quality dining chairs from a different foreign website or something. So we're just showing that.
Yeah, I think sometimes here and there slips may happen. Google is not perfect again, So sometimes even if you're searching for to buy a dining chair, for example, we may show results which may not be like probably which shows you amount in, say, for example, dollars, or companies which are outside of India selling those things and things like that. This may happen due to various reasons.
And one of those reasons could be that we just didn't find any good relevant content from India itself. Okay. I'm facing problems. I checked my Webmaster Tools diagnostic crawl error. It's showing DNS error. We checked the server end and also checked DNS tool to resolve issue, but it's given the same error. So, like in general, Webmaster Tools is pretty accurate with these things. So when we show DNS errors, we're pretty good at identifying if there are any issues with resolving your domain name. So of course, you can either check yourself using services like Into DNS or something, or you can just like check with your hosting service provider and see if you can help.
Yeah. So when you're seeing this kind of a problem in your Webmaster Tools, error in your Webmaster Tools, and it is most probably on your server side, which of course we don't have access to. So you'll have to work with your service provider to resolve this.
Vishal asks, if I move a site from one server to another, how is this going to affect my ranking? Inactive pages, but the new site will be up and active. Is it necessary to move the site with forwarding? By forwarding, I'm hoping you mean redirects. So as long as you set up the redirects properly and let Google also know using the change of address tool in Webmaster Tools. Obviously, there will be fluctuation in ranking, but in due time, you should be up and running. And
yeah, I think it is really important when you're moving your site to make sure that you're redirecting your old URLs to the URLs in the new website, right? So, for example, if you're serving some content on oldwebsite.com, your homepage.html, for example, then it should be newwebsite.com/homepage.html. So appropriately do a 301 redirects of your old content to the new content so that Google knows, okay, this is the same page that was being served from this URL. And as Ashish mentioned, you can also notify this in the Webmaster Tools account, so that should be taken care
of. Ashwini asks a question on my website is of travel, is from the travel niche, and it has unique content. like wiki travel, but it has been hit by a Google algorithm. I get to know this by Google Webmasters showing its ranking down. Only how do I know which algorithm hit it? So if you saw some message in Webmaster Tools as a saying like there's a huge drop in ranking, then obviously all we can suggest is like just take a look at your pages, and there's been like some good blog posts over the years on low quality content by Amit Singhal and others. So just go through those articles and make sure like you don't violate any guidelines or follow those instructions to improve your content. On the other side, if it's a message on manual actions, then it's a different case. You can see what the manual action is about, try and fix the issues that are mentioned in the message, and then file a reconsideration request. So like just make sure if it's whether it's simply a ranking drop or a manual action, because there are different steps to follow in these cases.
Absolutely, and I think generally, if you're seeing a drop in your ranking, it may not necessarily mean that you have been hit by an algorithm, right? Or any algorithmic update. So to assume that is not always correct. But as Ashish mentioned, do go back and take a look at your Webmaster Tools. If you have a manual action notice, then of course you have a manual action. If you don't have that, then your drop in ranking could be because of various reasons, right? It may not be an algorithmic update or whatever. It could be various reasons. So, but however, it is a good practice to go back and check your content, quality of your content, and what you value your product users and things like that. And if you find some things that can be tweaked and fixed, then definitely do that.
With these type of questions, I mean, many people are frustrated because they don't get like correct answers saying, "Oh, these 5 pages are bad. Remove these, then your site will be perfect and everything." But it's obviously that's not the case. You have to there's a lot. You have to spend some time and look at all the page, look at what content on your website doesn't meet guidelines, or say you can just go through the content, see if it's user friendly or if you can even improve it. It doesn't even, it may be decent now, but if obviously there are always ways to improve your content. So we keep on banging the same drum, but content again is king, and you have to focus on the content and how relevant and how useful it is to your users. Ramesh asks, in Webmaster Tools, why is it showing me crawl errors for desktop when I'm checking my mobile site? So, I mean, even if you're checking for desktop, we generally have a smartphone crawls tab right in the crawl errors section. So, because we know that both of those websites are, both of them are the same website, but just mobile and smartphone versions, we generally try and show you the data there. So it doesn't mean like that crawler is happening for the same URL in your desktop when you're checking for your mobile website. It could be, but it doesn't exactly mean that. We're just showing the data on both websites. Why Google continues its Ajax crawling? Okay, I already answered this question. Okay, Eliav Lankri asks, what is the best way to tell Google, please don't index this lightbox CSS? So yeah, if you don't want to index a certain content, I mean, you can just ask Google to not crawl them using robots. And then if the page you can use no index, you can use no index and then use robots to block further crawling. But I really suggest you not do this in this particular case. So CSS and JavaScript and other resources, please don't block them, because in many cases, like right now, as you seen the update yesterday, we can render pages pretty well. So even if you're using Lightbox to load images or whatever, we are pretty, at least we are getting good and pretty decent at identifying that. So if you, but in case you block resources, we are unable to render them properly. So it would actually be a negative for you. So I'd say don't do that. But if you want to, you can use robots.
Yeah, so in a case where, for example, you're using a Lightbox and then you absolutely do not want that to be indexed for some reason, then I think if you have a separate CSS file for that light box, then you can block that separate CSS file without affecting the rest of your website. Right? But if you have this lightbox code in the same CSS that is used for the other parts of your website, then I think it will affect all of your website. If you block this CSS, then we will not be able to render it correctly, the entire website, right? So it is a good practice if you want to block certain parts of the CSS to put in a different file and then block that particular CSS file.
We are doing two-way redirects for mobile and desktop sites. Do you think this is a good practice to redirect users based on their device? And doing 302 from desktop to mobile and mobile to desktop. So obviously redirects come with a lot of issues. So many times people make errors when redirecting users. So if you're confident and if you can identify the user agents properly and don't make any mistakes there, like this is fine. But otherwise you can just give the rel alternate tags and we'll recognize that, and when people are searching on the mobile version, we can just point them to the particular mobile website directly instead of you redirecting. But if you do redirect, it's, I mean, as long as you make sure the redirects are happening properly and like so the corresponding mobile page and desktop page are linked properly instead of having 40 redirects, it should be fine.
Yeah, I think there's another question on similar lines. Basically, the question is what Google recommends on having a separate site for mobile and how we structure our URLs for m.domain.com. Can we use same URL structure similar to desktop or use different? If we are using different URL structure than desktop, is there any drawback? So basically, Google recommends responsive web design, but of course we support all the different types of, like 3 types: dynamic serving, m.version, and the responsive web design. We support. We do not differentiate between those. Right? So you're free to use anything that is suitable for your business needs.
Yeah, and for regards to URL structure, you don't need to have it as m.domain.com. You can even have it in a separate subdirectory also. But just make sure when you're redirecting or giving the alternate tags, you're pointing to the correct version. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and if you're asking about an older URL and a newer URL, do they need to be exactly the same on m.version and on your desktop version? They may not necessarily, unless the content on the page is same. The URL is changing a little bit here and there. That is okay.
Okay, Girish asks if my website is responsive and it's showing passed in Google Webmaster mobile friendly tool, but in Google Page Inspire tool, my website is showing 72 by 100. Do we need to fix this? So I think in the mobile friendly tool, we are focusing on user friendliness, and in the page speed insights, we also have like pointers on like the speed aspect, where basically like optimized images, if there are scripts blocking your page, like immediate above the fold content to load, then like these are some of the small issues that you may need to fix. So again, yeah, of course, like you're asking if it hurts before the 22nd update or not. I'd say, I mean, if you find any issue, please try and fix it. Especially if you see anything in the red section, it basically means, like, if you fix that, there's a significant improvement in your website speed. So if you're seeing it, there's no harm in trying like pushing to fix that issue. Of course, even after 22nd April, if you fix that, it's not like we only rank sites on that date and stop changing the ranking again. So even after that date, if you don't have time now, if you can fix that, if we'll just on a next scroll, we'll just see it and like update your website. Ashwani asks, I have a question. Is backlinks means a lot for ranking any website to rank? Is the content not enough for any website? So content is a very important factor when we are looking at serving relevant content to users. But backlinks is a way for Google to sort of like it counts in page rank, and page rank is one of our ranking factors. So backlinks is definitely something like, if you have organic backlinks, it's definitely a plus factor when your website is being ranking. So if you have like good organic backlinks, that's obviously a positive factor.
But I think what you should focus as an owner of a website is not how to build your backlinks, but how you can provide value to your users, how you can provide good content that you have expertise in, things like that, so that backlinks will take care of itself. Um, you know, in a short term.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, obviously, like, if you created a website today, it would be hard for people to know that your content is out there. So you'll have to spend some time in, like, maybe posting your content on certain like media networks, or like sharing your content on like different social media. So or even if in some cases sharing your content using ad services on like multiple platforms, not just Google's ad services, different other ad services also. So these are like ways to improve increase your site's visibility over the like general internet. But like at the end of the day, if the content is not relevant for certain queries, we will not show that website in ranking. So content is the most important thing. That should be your main focus. But obviously, apart from that, you can do a lot of other things to improve your site's visibility. So we're running short on time, so we'll try and quickly answer. Link buying is one of the most common strategies that impatient online marketers use. Is Google taking any action on this link? So we've from pretty much the beginning of our web spam actions, we've discouraged link buying because it's clearly some way to manipulate Google's rankings. And over the years, I'm sure you've seen quite a few news articles on even Chrome was penalized, I think. Yeah, Chrome.
Yeah, so there have been a few instances where we found some of our own websites were violating somehow. Violating some of our search quality guidelines. In some cases, we had some contracts with third parties. They didn't know their quality guidelines and things like that. Basically, things fell apart, and then we took manual action against our own website. So yes, we have been against link buying. And by the way, link buying and selling, basically, see, links are problems. I mean, if you are no following your links, then I think it is okay whatever you do with your links. We just can't say, okay, never buy links or sell links or whatever, or exchange links, right? We're only concerned about search results being influenced, right, in a wrong way by these fake links or inorganic links. That is the only concern Google has. So if you are into any activity that is not recommended by Google, I mean, especially with links, then you can actually follow those links and do whatever you want with those links. And if you have been following in the recent past, we have taken on a lot of link networks, right? That has been in the media as well. So yes, we are taking care of that.
Okay, Ramesh asks, just wanted to confirm that what John said, that Google uses desktop rankings for mobile site, and Google's idea behind boosting sites which are mobile friendly. So yeah, I mean, right now we do use desktop rankings for mobile websites, and in the future also, like, we will be desktop rankings will matter a lot for mobile websites, because that's pretty much like our core web index. And I'm not sure what John said regarding Google's idea behind boosting. I'm not sure what exactly John said there, so I'll refrain from commenting.
Yeah, so basically, I think if you're asking about mobile-friendly sites being served for mobile users, of course, I think that is an important factor. So yeah, if somebody's searching from a mobile device, then if there is a mobile-friendly website, then of course that may rank better than a version that is not mobile-friendly.
So Girish asks if desktop results are also changes on 22nd April. So the 22nd April update that we did announce is for introducing the ranking change on for mobile websites. So there's been nothing announced with regards to the desktop. Ashwani asks, my site has complete unique content as I've checked many tools, but its ranking went down from last 1 month from 1200 to 86. My website didn't get any messages from webmasters. I don't have any backlinks to. Is there any tool to know the reason? Again, without looking at the actual pages, so we can't really say anything.
I think the best place for you to go to is the Google Webmaster forum. Please post your website there. People will be, I mean, there are a lot of helpful people out there who may take a look at your website and then probably debug things for you. And as we have answered in one of the previous answers, that fluctuation in search rankings may happen for a lot of reasons, right? So
of course, if there's like a very huge drop in ranking, there could clearly be some issues that you can fix. So I'd suggest like just go to the Webmaster Tools forum and like post your question. Ramesh Singh asks, we are using third-party sites for advertising purposes, and they've updated their script, which is causing crawling and indexing issue of advertisement content. Our bots are crawling this content, and we are worried if this is going to hit us. So, ads have always been crawled from like quite a few. I mean, there are clearly ad bots that crawl content. But if you're asking,
I think the question is basically if you have some resources that are third-party resources that are being blocked, right? And Googlebot is not able to crawl those files.
He's saying like those sites for advertising purposes, like the script they've updated is causing crawling and indexing issues of ad content. So it's the content. It's basically ads content is being blocked. I mean, from a search perspective, it shouldn't matter, I guess. But yeah, I'm not sure about like clearly about like what content.
Yeah, I think we need some clarity on the question itself. Basically, if you're saying that okay, the advertisements on your website that are being displayed, those are being blocked by the third party who is serving those ads, will your website get affected in search results? I'm not sure if that is what is you're trying to ask. I think the most critical resources that you have for your pages, like your JavaScript, your CSS, and those things which are used to render your page in a proper format, if those are not blocked, it should not make a big difference.
Yeah, but if ad content is blocked, I think it shouldn't matter. At least from just rendering perspective and crawling perspective, it shouldn't matter. And from a content perspective, also, we will. If it's clearly ad content that we recognize, we will not. We will not be showing that content in our search results anyway. So that shouldn't matter. Shankar asks, when we do competitors link research, we see a lot of old backlinks. So is there any specified rule about the recency or frequency of links that Google values while ranking websites? Of course, like there is quality of links matters. Sometimes a link from a reputed website is more valuable than a link from another like not so reputed website. But the age doesn't really matter. So, I mean, of course, age could contribute indirectly to the quality of a link, but age directly doesn't influence link quality. Yeah, I think we are not quite, but just a minute over time. So we'll take two last questions and close it.
Okay, the two quick ones probably.
Yeah. Girish asks, I have one website, farmingwithdoctor.com. I installed analytics didn't get any details like users and other factors. Again, sorry, this is an analytics question, so we'll try and take search question. Is Google using any tools to diagnose whether a site is hit by Panda, Penguin, or other update? So publicly, we will not. Right now, we're not like letting. Right now, we will sometimes announce algorithmic changes, but there's no way for users to actually check if their website has been hit by an algorithmic action. So, I mean, we are pretty. Right now, we can check for manual actions, but for algorithmic actions, right now, there are no tools to diagnose. Okay, one last question. How to check cache for mobile version except fetches Google bot? We can check it on Webmaster Tools, but is there any tool where we can check text version of mobile pages? I think you can just do this on the particular device, but checking with fetches Google bot is better because you can see the exact mobile render version. And to do competitor analysis of mobile websites, you can just check it on the certain device to just see how the website is. Or you can use page speed insights tool where we sort of show a sample render of the particular page. Yeah, so over time, so I'm sorry about all the questions that we didn't answer.
Yeah, I think, but it was a good thing. We saw a lot of questions, answered a lot of questions on links. So it has been a useful hangout. For some reason, people were not able to join this hangout. We're sorry about that. I think.
Yeah, we just tried it on another system and we were able to join. So.
Yeah, it was working perfectly fine for us, but we will look into that, what the problem was, and hopefully this will not repeat. But anyways, we have a lot of people actually watching this hangout live right now. So I hope the answers benefit. I mean, you have benefited from the answers. So yeah, we'll see you soon, like probably end of this month.
Yeah, we'll have another hangout in another couple of weeks. So maybe you can bring your questions then. And I'm really sorry about the questions that we're not able to. So there is another hangout by John tomorrow, I think, or probably Monday next week. And there are a series of mobile madness hangouts that will come up, and these are like region friendly also. So you'll see some hangouts in like Indian time, some hangouts in European time also. So you can join any one of those hangouts. John, Pierre, Zineb, and other Webmaster Trends analysts from Google's Webmaster Central team will join and answer your questions in those hangouts. Thanks for joining. See you.
Bye.
Bye.